Hey everybody, welcome to InnRoads Plays. I'm your Uncle Jeff, and I'm joined here with my esteemed game master, Mr. Brent Brown. How you doing, Brent?
Hello, doing great.
We are about the business of disclaimers in this very short episode. So this is kind of the first time you're going to see a little bit of the overlay. I may have been posting some pictures willy-nilly upon the internets, but this is a preview of a game called Cthulhu Confidential. It is a very it's a special game for me because it's actually changed my mind about one-on-one gaming. Whereas before I found it a quite uncomfortable affair. This system, and then also kudos to Mr. Brown here, has made it something of an enjoyable thing. So we'll be getting to the first episode here shortly. You'll probably get a chance to review this video beforehand, maybe give it a couple of days, and then we'll drop the first episode so that we can get that out for your viewing pleasure. So let's get on with the disclaiming. What decade is this, or decades is this game set in, Brent?
This game takes place in the 1940s, specifically 1943.
So it's a different time, right? A little bit of a different time.
It is indeed.
We've got some different social mores to deal with, and you're gonna. This actually reminds me of Victoriana quite a bit. Before and of course Dr. Loom is present here. When we did Victoriana, we had a little bit of a prelim there too, disclaiming that during that time, during the Victorian age, you had a lot of social castes in place. These were the systems by which the myriad of classes were governed, ranging from noble all the way down to the peasantry. And unfortunately, in 1940s Washington D.C., where this particular episode of Cthulhu Confidential takes place, that is also the case. It's a sensitive time now, right? I mean, we're dealing with this quite a bit, and I'm actually kind of proud of how Robin D. Laws and the crew behind this book took it right in the front. I mean, they went head first into the issues of sexism in one of the episodes, and then of course racism. The protagonist, and in fact the character that I'll be playing, is Langston Wright, an African American private detective, ex-Army, and all of the things that go on in Washington, D.C. of the time, ranging from Jim Crow laws to the just complete and just total denigration of a swath of culture at that time, it's prevalent in the game. So how did you, as a game master, Brent, how did you approach this? What was your preparation in dealing with this?
Yeah, my primary and honestly solo concern was how anything that we might do in the game might affect one of our viewers. Racism in particular has been part of the human experience since the beginning, or very near the beginning. And if we were playing a game in ancient Egypt, I would not be nearly as concerned as how Persians might be portrayed or something like that, because that is far enough along in the past that I'm unlikely to unwittingly cause someone distress, right? But here, where we are in the early days of 2017, obviously racism, particularly against African Americans, continues to be an issue, and part of the lived experience of people who I care about. And so, since I'm not an African American, nor have I ever lived in the 1940s, it seems like it would be awfully easy for me to make an assumption or say something or portray something in a way that someone would potentially have a problem with. That they would say, that is not, an African American man in the 1940s would not be able to do that. Or if he said this, there would be repercussions that you didn't portray, or anything that might give the impression that I'm not taking it seriously. And so that was my primary concern, to try to, whenever the subject of race came up in the game, to try to address it in a way that, from my experience, seemed reasonable and accurate, without also wallowing in it, without trying to inflame the issue or make it worse than maybe even it was at the time. And so that was my primary concern, just trying to portray it as accurately to the best of my knowledge and to not do anything that would cause distress to one of our viewers.
Good. Yeah, it was a fine line, because the more I read about it, obviously it's kind of a rehash of your history classes, and some of the elements that at a younger age you may not even have been paying attention to when you're not part of that culture. And so rereading through it, almost feeling inflamed myself, obviously, but, you know, I don't have a point of reference, you know, that I'm not African American. But at the same time, much like you, I wanted to make sure that I honored the experience, as bad as it was, and not in such a way that it calls attention to it. You know, I think during the recording, and for you folks at home, we've already gone through and recorded our first episodes. So this is more of a way for us to understand what we went through when we did the game and how we portrayed it. And I think for us, we did it in such a way that it wasn't like a splatter flick. You know, like when you have some movie like Saw or something like that, where it's just gruesome for gruesome's sake. We didn't do anything like that with this. We understood the context in which we were living within this game session, and I think we moved the narrative forward in such a way that it's, you know, we weren't doing something that's outside of what was happening at that time. You know, there was an incident where my character Langston Wright has to speak with a white female, and I, hopefully doing it right, I moved my character's attitude in such a way that it was less Langston and more of a subservient feel to this woman that I was having to deal with, in such a way that I wouldn't have to create a social conflict at that time, something that as a private detective and looking for information I could not afford. So it's things like that. It's that balancing act of making sure that we're not making it completely overt, but at the same time we're honoring that difficulty and the oppression that was occurring at the time. So as far as the writing goes, the descriptions, again, it wasn't a full-on history lesson, but it was a good summary of what was going on at the time, and it gave you context, it gave you a feel. What was your opinion of the write-up within the book?
I thought that was helpful. The game comes with 3 scenarios, one set in New York, one in LA, and one in Washington, D.C. And the scenario we're doing is the one in Washington, D.C. And the one that most directly deals with these race issues. And so clearly that was, and the name of the adventure is Capital Color. So, you know, right there in the title, you kind of know what you're getting into. Yeah. So it's not definitely something that catches you off guard. And I felt that there was pretty balanced. Not everybody that's in there is a screaming racist, right? There's people that of all backgrounds that help Langston, and there's you know, several people that don't.
That hinder.
That hinder. Yeah. And the way that I would have been disappointed if, you know, every time Langston stepped outside his door, he was just taking his life in his hands because somebody was just going to come and attack him, you know, for no reason. I felt that might be overboard. Certainly those things did happen. But I don't know that it was the day-to-day lived experience. It was more just this overtone. Just everything that Langston did was just a little bit harder because he was an African American. It was, you know, driving down the road or talking to someone or going into a building or interacting with a police officer was just a little bit harder, a little more edgy, and a little more risky for him.
Yeah, I felt like there was a danger, a risk because of this social interaction. Yeah,
for
sure.
And so it was just kind of layered on top of everything. And there are a few scenes that are more specific about racial tensions, but overall, it's just something that Langston had to deal with day after day after day after day that someone else wouldn't necessarily have to deal with.
Right. So, you know, there's going to be other scenes as well that you know, that are going to deal with this going forward. So by the time this episode drops, we'll have recorded our first couple episodes, basically our first session broken into 2 parts. And then we'll hopefully very shortly thereafter be able to record the next session. So we'll get these out to you pretty rapidly, especially trying to take advantage of the fact that this is new. We're working with a PDF copy that is the, I want to say almost preview copy, but maybe not, before the hard copy comes out. So we're very privileged to be able to have a jump on this and to get this out to you to see if you guys like it.
Absolutely.
But anything else that you think you want to cover as far as disclaimer goes?
Yeah. Shall I disclaim what we are about to do? Yeah. Just, again, a note to the viewers. If over the course of the adventure something strikes you as off or incorrect or not correctly portrayed, there's certainly going to be people watching this who have far more historical knowledge and lived experience than I do. Just please know it's from ignorance, not malice. This is something that we did our best on and that we wanted to do, and I hope that we did at least reasonably well.
Right. I couldn't have said it better myself. All right. Well, we thank you so much for this time. Again, just a short video. We hope that you enjoy the presentation of Cthulhu Confidential's Capital Color. This will be the first in the series that's presented in this book. And huge thanks to Professor Brent Brown for putting this together. He did a fantastic job. I can already say that I'm having an excellent time with this game. So enjoy. Be warned of some of the material and the context that's going to be occurring in these games. And we hope to hear from you on your impressions of the game, the system. Hopefully our portrayals are decent enough that it doesn't take you out of the fiction, out of the narrative. We look forward to hearing from you. So thanks for your time, and we will see you all around the table making some new friends.
Excellent.